In this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I speak to Debbie Millman about kicking fear in the face and having a little confidence in your awesome abilities. Do it. Hello and welcome to session 18 of the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring stories from creative entrepreneurs. I am your host, Turn Dog, and on this edition I speak to the inspiring Debbie Millman about her great mistake and oh wow, how she turned it around. As you may have guessed, this is all in aid of my book, The Successful Mistake, which is a little selection of words I like to think will help people like your good self overcome mistakes and learn to tackle them in a very, very proactive manner. Today I'm very lucky indeed to share my conversation with Debbie Millman, who is a girl who's been there and done it. When it comes to impressive CVs, oh wow, does Debbie have it covered. She's got successful books, a successful radio show, she's a director at Sterling Brands, which is rather massive indeed, and she's someone who just knows a great deal. But it wasn't always so simple, and Debbie talks about getting out of college, having dreams and aspirations of being more and doing wonderful things, but ultimately allowing her own fear and worries to take too much of a stronghold, and it resulted in her doing what everyone felt she had to do: get a job. Oh yes, sometimes getting a job is fine, and Debbie found a fantastic one eventually, and she has no regrets in that regard, don't get me wrong. However, she wanted so much more, and she did ultimately deep down believe in herself. But she was young, she was scared she wouldn't be able to keep her head above water, she was worried she'd fall into poverty, and all those things we all ultimately worry about from time to time. Now, eventually the opportunities did come, but it was 10, 15 years down the road, and she looks back and thinks, if only I had a bit of confidence in myself, had a little bit of bravery, maybe all this could have begun so much sooner, and who knows where she could be now. Now, chances are you are in this exact same position. Maybe you're working for somebody else, maybe you're still at university or college, maybe you have aspirations of a business or for working for yourself, but that fear says, no, don't do it. You need a regular check, you've got a family to look after, you've got rent to pay, you're not good enough, other people do this kind of thing, not people like you. Well, it's all rubbish. There's always going to be an excuse, there's always going to be fear. But you have the ability to push through it and make sure you live life on your own terms. And I'm excited to share this inspiring discussion because Debbie is someone who knows, she's been there, and if she can turn her life around, anybody can. And trust me, she is someone who has turned it all the way around. She's an inspiration to people like me. But you may be wondering who this Debbie Millman character is, so I created a little story about her because I want to make sure you go into this interview and feeling like she's a friend of yours. I'm a nice guy like that. So without further ado, let me share a little story I pre-prepared. To steal words from her own mouth, Debbie Millman is a writer, educator, artist, brand consultant and host of a radio show, Design Matters. Jesus, Debbie, how about you leave the rest of us with a chance? Why don't you? I mean, there's greedy, and then there's stealing a lollipop from a baby, kind of greedy. And taunting said baby with their last lollipop on their first birthday, as their mother sits idly by. Oh, and did I mention she's president of Sterling Brands? Yeah, that too. Not that that's important. When it comes to building yourself an impressive CV, Debbie can offer us all a whole heap of advice. Chances are she's been there and done it no matter what it is you wish to do for yourself. Like I say, she's one greedy, greedy girl, but hey, don't be a hater. Be a lover and love thy Debbie. Here you go, folks. Get ready to take lots of notes. I'm delighted to be joined by Debbie Millman, and she is a bit of an extreme tradesperson. She's got a few things in her locker. So I'm actually going to just read off her website real quick because I feel it describes everything in perfect detail. So Debbie Millman is a writer, educator, artist, brand consultant, and host of a radio show, Design Matters. I feel like that says everything. Debbie, thank you, first of all, for joining me. And please start off by just sharing a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, because you do a little bit of all sorts.
Yes, I like to keep it all sort of mixed up. Well, I'm president at Sterling Brands, which is a brand consultancy in the United States, although we just opened an office in the UK, so I'm excited about that. I am also the chair and co-founder of the Masters in Branding program at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. And I am a writer. I've written 6 books on design and branding. And I've also, in the last, I guess, couple of years, been doing lots of visual essays and illustrated typography, fun things like that.
Wow. Have you invented new hours to get
And I
into the
host
day?
Design Matters, the internet radio show. And I've been doing that for almost 10 years. What's
Wow.
that?
Have you invented a few hours to go
Um,
into the day? I feel like you can't possibly
uh,
sleep with all that.
oh, I do. I'm a big sleeper. I'm a big sleeper and a big advocate of getting enough sleep. I actually think that's why I'm able to do what I do because that's when your brain rejuvenates and your cells rejuvenate. And so the more you sleep, the more you can do.
Well, that's very, very true. I agree with that. And
And the
I'm
younger you stay.
that's the trick. That's the trick. Well, I must say I also like sleep. But yeah, I mean, all with everything that you do, it's fantastic. And you do so much, and I'm sure you've got some great stories to tell us. So, for those who don't know, this interview is in aid of my book, The Successful Mistake, which is a book about entrepreneurs and their big mistake and how they turned it around. And ultimately, it's for entrepreneurs to help them kickstart their journey and overcome their own faux pas. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass it back over to you, Debbie, to share your big mistake and how it went down and the journey it's taken you on since then. So, please share your tale.
Okay. Well, I guess that my biggest mistake was underestimating what my life could be about. And this goes all the way back to, I guess, graduating college in 1983. And I actually remember the moment that I made the mistake. I was standing on the corner of 6th Avenue and Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village in the evening. It was coming from, I think, a nightclub that I'd been out to. I had just recently moved to Manhattan. Though I'm a native New Yorker, I had only lived in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. I'd never lived in Manhattan until that time. And I stood there on the corner of Bleecker Street and 6th Avenue and felt like I was looking deep into my future and felt tremendous panic that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself, that I wouldn't be self-sufficient, that I wouldn't be able to fulfill any of my dreams because I didn't feel like I was smart enough or talented enough or attractive enough or anything enough. I had no money. I had very little guidance. I had a college degree in English literature and Russian literature, which is not what I would consider to be the degree to sort of propel you to worldwide success. But nevertheless, I really truly felt that if I pursued any of my big dreams, that I would end up a bag lady on the street because I wouldn't be successful and I wouldn't be able to take care of myself. So at that moment, in 1983, I was 22 years old. I compromised. I compromised. And I decided at that point that it was prudent to choose self-sufficiency over dreams and hopes and ambition so that I would be able to so that I would ultimately be sure that I would be secure, which is not only tragic, but also not possible. Even choosing a lower aspiration doesn't even give you the guarantee that you're going to be successful at that. But nevertheless, I decided I was going to put all of my dreams of artistic freedom or a life of culture and artistry and purpose aside and do whatever I could just to pay my rent. And so I did the only thing that I really had a marketable skill for, which was at the time old school layout and paste up in the graphic design world, and just took the first job that I could. And I, at that point, just went on sort of a little surf with my life, wherever the sea would take me, wherever the waves would take me, without any sense of direction, without any sense of. It wasn't until about 10 years later that I recalibrated, which was also quite a lot by accident. And then another 10 years after that before I achieved any real full success. So 10 years spent living out of fear as opposed to any sense of possibility. Big mistake.
Wow. But I think that's something that,
For a second, I thought we cut off. It's
yeah,
like, oh no, I hope I don't have to say that whole thing again.
no, 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 no. I'm here. Don't worry, I'm here. I just think that's such an apt thing, and it's something particularly applicable to a young entrepreneur and certainly a young creative. You know, I write to myself, and I know designers and poets and musicians and everything. And I feel a lot of the times, if it's not your own fear that kind of gobbles you up, it's maybe the fear of other people, you know, whether it be your parents or school teachers or anyone who's just throwing rationality at you, going, no, you can't do that. You can't set up your own business. Why would you do that when you can get a job and,
Yeah,
you know, be
absolutely,
secure?
absolutely.
And their
Yep,
fear and their
absolutely,
doubt can then manifest into you. And before you know it, you are doubting yourself and you can spend five,
absolutely. And
10
what I
years.
find is that people start to consider what is impossible to do before they even consider what is possible.
Yeah.
And they self-edit their possibilities based on that self-imposed fear and that self-imposed limitation, which might not have any basis in reality. It's just a self-imposed feeling about yourself. And they wait to think, well, maybe if I feel more confident, when I feel more confident, I'll be able to do this. When I feel better about myself, I'll be able to do this. And the fact of the matter is, if we wait for that to happen, we might wait forever. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, human beings don't really bode well with the unknown or uncertainty. That reptilian part of our brain, which is hardwired into us, and the oldest part of the brain, is responsible for all of our involuntary action. So digestion and heartbeat and all the things that we don't really control about our bodies consciously. But one other thing that the reptilian brain controls is the feeling that overtakes us when we're nearly hit by a car, but not quite, or when we think somebody's running behind us and we're unsafe. That sense of adrenaline that happens is instantaneous. We don't think about it. We don't think, oh, now I need that adrenaline surge to protect myself. And it's the same way when we look at our future and see something that is uncertain. We feel vulnerable. And the first initial reaction, the knee jerk reaction, is to try to protect ourselves from it. And by protecting ourselves from it, we actually don't move forward into it. We actually stand back. We hold ourselves back. And so it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. We don't understand or know what's coming next. We feel fear about it. And our instinct then is to keep from doing it when our heart might be all about actually trying to embrace it. Our basic instincts take over and actually sort of give us that sense that it's not possible and we have to stay safe. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we think if we wait till we're enough of something, pretty talented, confident, whatever it is. And I think that confidence is really overrated. We think that we need confidence to do things. Oh, if I only had as much confidence as that person, or oh, if I only felt that way about myself like this person does. And I was talking to Dani Shapiro, the writer, about this, and she actually said that she felt that confidence is something that artists don't necessarily need. In fact, confidence might actually hold us back from exploring that which we want to understand better as artists. As artists, we have to be questioning, we have to be experimenting, we have to be investigating and researching and having that sureness, having that sense of things being definite, actually fly in the face of doing all the rigor that we need to do as artists to find new things, to create original content. So she felt that what was more important was courage. But I think that for an artist, it's even more than that. I think it's more than just courage over confidence. I think it's a combination of courage and competence. So if we work really hard at something and we get really, really good at it, at least as good as we think we can be, and we keep pushing to continually get better, that if we do that simultaneously, if we have the courage to do that, then we should have the courage to be able to actually make a life doing that. So what we need more than confidence is courage and competence. So those are the two things that I think are really important to consider when trying to avoid making that mistake that I did.
Wow. And I love that because as a writer, I always think you can never stop editing a book. You can always read it again and
Right.
think, I will edit it a little bit further. And I always try and think, I'm going to
Right.
take it to a certain point where I feel like maybe it's good enough now to show someone else, you know, and you let
Right.
other
Right.
people in,
Right.
and then you go back and change it again. And it's about
Right.
just getting it to a level where you're happy, and then, like you say, being brave enough to let it fly out into the world.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily encourage people to show their first drafts, but certainly their 10th might be worth
Yeah.
sharing. You
Yeah.
know, one of the other things that I've realized over the years, and this comes from most of the interviews that I've done, either on Design Matters or in my books, is that there are very, very few people that wake up every day and think, okay, now I'm going to do something great. I'm going to be amazing. Most people, especially really accomplished people that I've interviewed, wake up and think, oh, I hope I can do that again. I hope I'm not caught out being a phony. I hope I'm not a one trick pony, things like that. When the only two people that I've interviewed in all of my interviews, and we're talking like close to 300 at this point between my books and radio work, is were Massimo Vignelli and Milton Glaser. And they're the only two that I've interviewed that are like, okay, I am who I am. And I think the common denominator there is that they're in their 80s.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, by then, let's hope we all have that.
Yeah. You get to
But
a
let's
certain
let's
point.
let's plan to have that when we're in our 80s. Until then, you know, keep working
That's it.
hard.
That's it. No, I agree. And we've been talking about it from a sort of creative standpoint, and we mentioned the new entrepreneur, the young entrepreneur. But this is the sort of thing that happens in a business too. I'm imagining now the person who's set up a business, they're 3 years in, they're caught up in client work, but they really want to work on that big project. They want to take it to the next level. You know, set up a conference, you know, build that software they've always wanted. But they're scared because they think, well, why would I disrupt something where I'm getting client work, I'm getting the money in, and take this big gamble on something that may or may not even slightly work?
So, Matthew, the easy answer there is do it while you're doing the other
Mm.
thing. There's no reason why you can't create self-generated work while you're working for someone else. That would be the sort of prudent way to do it.
Yeah.
There's no reason you have to quit your day job to create self-generated work that might ultimately take over for your day job. But I know so many people that have made a name for themselves creating their own work in the evenings while they were working for somebody else during the day. And if somebody says they're too busy to do that, then they're lying to themselves about how much they really want it. Because busy is a decision. It's something I say all the time. If you don't do something and you use that you're too busy as an excuse, it is simply an excuse. People find the time to do the things that they want to do. They make the time to create. And if you don't make the time, even when you have other things going on, then you just don't want it badly enough. You'd rather watch Game of Thrones? Great. Just admit it.
Yeah.
Don't say I'm too busy to do it, because there are plenty of people that have two or three or four jobs that they take on just to make ends meet. So if you have a day job that's paying all your bills and you want to do something at night that can create a scenario for you for the future that could ultimately be your livelihood, then do it. Then do it while you have your paid salary and your benefits, and spend all of your other waking hours and weekend time creating something that can fulfill that purpose that you feel that you want to live by.
Mm. And there's so many self-published authors these days who have found success just doing that. They've been working at, you know, Hugh Howey, for instance, just working in a bookstore, you know, writing in his evenings, and look where he
Absolutely.
is now. And that's where most of the self-sufficient artists out there, it all began for them. They were plugging away
Yeah. I
at
mean,
midnight.
very few people now make a name for themselves in their agencies. They
Mm.
make a name for themselves doing what they do as entrepreneurs. And if you need an agency job to pay your way for a while being an entrepreneur, thank your lucky stars that you can do both
Yeah.
and make the time to do both, with the knowledge that you don't want to necessarily live like that forever, but you can certainly do it while you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, so that by the time you're in your 50s and 60s, you're doing what you really want to be doing all the time.
Brilliant.
You know,
So,
we live now in what I'm calling a 140 character culture. We're so
yeah.
used to being able to communicate with such speed that we expect that everything in life happens that fast. And it doesn't. Anything meaningful takes a long time to happen. Relationships, books, life, it all takes a while to unfold. And if you expect to graduate college, come out and become famous, you're looking, I think, for the wrong things. If you want to be well known for doing something, get really, really good at doing it before you start trying to become famous for it. I've spoken to a bunch of young people recently, and there were two very distinctly different answers when I asked a question. Actually, everyone that I've been asking the question to, the majority of the answer is when I ask a young person what they want to be when they grow up. I've had a lot of kids in just the last couple of years say famous, not a fireman or a graphic designer or a nurse or a teacher, just famous. The idea of being famous is what they want, as opposed to being famous for something. But I recently asked, and I recently asked the question to somebody, and given me new hope on the next generation. I asked somebody, a young woman, what she wanted to be when she grew up, young girl, and she answered with the best answer I've ever heard in my entire life. She said, when I asked her, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" She said, "Everything." I love that. I love that. Love
Yeah.
that. It's mystic and full of hope and possibility.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really more the sort of life mission that I have, in terms of wanting to do it all, wanting to do everything.
Yeah, and we get given quite a long life as well, and it's only kind of getting longer with all technology. So you can do a
Yeah.
lot in a lifetime if you're
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. I want to live forever.
Yeah, and just do it all. I mean, flipping things back to you, because you had that switch flip in Manhattan, and that fear took over, and you thought, I'm gonna throw away my dreams so I can have a normal life. You know, I can do what we're supposed to do. At what stage did that switch maybe flip back, where you thought, no, I want to do my dreams now? Was there a particular incident, or did it evolve over years?
It evolved, but it evolved for years. When I started my career, which I really consider So I graduated college in 1983. So it took me about 10 years to sort of find my footing, even in choosing the safer path. Um, and I started working and becoming successful in branding when I got to Sterling, or right before Sterling at my previous job. But it really sort of felt like it fell into place when I got to Sterling in 1995. Um, but in 2005, or late 2004, I was given the opportunity to start Design Matters. And Design Matters was something that sort of the opportunity fell into my lap. I was literally cold called by an internet radio station, a fledgling radio station that I think had found me through Speak Up, where I had been doing some writing. But they cold called somebody in my office, and she forwarded the call to me. And at that point, I had never really considered the possibility of doing any type of live radio show, which is what it was. And I had to pay them for the airtime and the production time. But I thought at that point, I'm working so hard at this day job. I It's not doing everything that I want it to do for my soul. Here's an opportunity to do something that has no commercial value at all, that's purely done out of love, that I actually have to pay for. And I decided to do it. I decided to invest in myself. It cost a bit of money, but why else was I working so hard? What was I planning to do? And so I did it. I started doing it. It was done with very, very rudimentary technology. It was essentially two handsets over an ISDN line. And I did that for about 100 episodes on that platform. And then Bill Drentel, the late great Bill Drentel, a Design Observer, asked if I'd be interested in moving the show to Design Observer, with the caveat that I had to improve the sound quality. Now, when I first started doing Design Matters, there were no podcasts. Design Matters was actually the first design podcast. So I didn't know the show was ultimately going to be popular and eventually win a Cooper Hewitt Design Award. It was really just this manifestation of love. So much so, Matthew, that even to this day, nearly 10 years later, the show doesn't have a logo. It doesn't have its own website. It was just done purely for love. And I've resisted using the trappings of everything I do in sort of my day job and put that towards Design Matters, because I so don't want it to be sort of seen in the same vein as all those other things. I want it to sort of be seen as this pure labor of love. But I've been urged by some very important people to me that I should probably take it more seriously and get a gosh darn logo, you know?
You're like the website designer who doesn't have his own website. Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
And did this, I mean, we talked about courage earlier. Was this the courage? Did it spark the courage for you to go out there and, write the books, start speaking, start doing all the other things that now are a part of your world and you are now, so well known for?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think that it was a part of it. Um, Ultimately, I think my moment of courage came when I actually entered into the conversation on Speak Up that was criticizing my work. In 2003, there was a blog post on the then very, very, very new publishing platform called blogging, on a site called Speak Up, which Armin Witt had founded the year before. And unbeknownst to me, there had been a conversation that had been going on for quite some time about the tragedy of my being involved with AIGA and the work that I was doing, being representative of a juror in one of AIGA's competitions. Um, I found this site through a friend and was mortified, horrified, humiliated, ashamed. It was really, really painful to read what had been written about my work and me. And I think that the moment of courage came when I injected myself into the conversation with a bunch of people that clearly had no respect for anything that I was doing. Thankfully, I won them over and they've all become friends, believe it or not. I very tentatively joined that conversation, and that was, I think, a moment of courage that um, changed everything, changed everything. What was essentially at that moment prior to coming into the conversation was literally the worst professional moment of my life. Seeing myself sort of torn down online on this forum turned into the catalyst that changed everything, everything.
And was it a case of just rediscovering all those dreams and aspirations you had as a starry-eyed 20-year-old? I mean, we're all those starry-eyed ones when we're 18, 19, feel we can take on the world.
I'm
But
still, I hope I'm still starry-eyed, but
well,
yes, it did. The little bit of success that I then got on Speak Up, because I then ended up writing on the site and became part of this really tight knit group of people that were trying to make a difference through design discourse, turned into my meeting Joyce Kay, the editor in chief at the time of Print Magazine, and she invited me to write for the magazine and to speak at a conference that she was producing. And then at the conference, I met Steve Heller, and Steve then became a very dear friend, mentor, fairy godfather, as I like to call him. And he was really, really instrumental. And he was entirely instrumental in not only getting me my first book deal, but also inviting me to co-found the Masters in Branding program with him at the School of Visual Arts. If I hadn't done Speak Up, I don't think I would have gotten the opportunity to do Design Matters. So there's just so many things that I can point to coming from that pivotal moment in 2003 and through to 2005 when I started Design Matters.
wow, fantastic. And I think your journey is one that a lot of people can empathize with because we start off starry-eyed and then life kind of gets hold of us and says, no, you can't do that. You need to get a job. You need to pay the
Right.
rent.
You
And
need to be responsible.
yeah, and then
Responsible to who? Responsible to who? You
well,
have to be responsible to yourself
conformity, I
first.
guess. That's what they
Yeah.
try and tell us, the man, the man. But then eventually, at least I feel it's happening more and more. People are getting to a certain age, whether it's in their late 20s, early 30s, 40s, whenever it might be, where they go, actually, no, I can still do them dreams. I can write a
Yeah.
book or, set up my business, do whatever. And I feel like it even is now people are leaving college, they can't get a job, so they set up their own business. And they start off setting up their own business with the ambitions of, I'm going to do things my way and it's going to be amazing. And very quickly they get strangleholded into going, no, I need to look a certain way, I need to act a certain way. If I want to get these kind of
Yeah.
clients, I need to do that. And they spend years in this, self-employment purgatory where they're kind of working for themselves, but they're basically just in another form of employment. And eventually along the line hopefully they break away from that and are able to set up that big project, take it to the next level. And that's something I've learned through these successful mistakes so far. I've met so many great people who have kind of gone through that purgatory and then along the line it clicked and they said, no,
Right.
I can take care of myself now, I can do that project. And that's when things started rolling. And well, for you it certainly rolled into many great things, from radio to books to everything else.
Yes.
So if you could just jump back into your 22, 21, 22-year-old body and give yourself just a couple of quick nuggets of wisdom, like what would you say to yourself?
I would say try not to compare yourself to people that you admire. You have no idea what their lives are really like and what their own struggles might be. In avoiding comparison, it might be a good idea to try not to measure yourself against everyone and anyone. So I would avoid comparison and mimicry.
Mm.
That you can only do something that somebody else does if you're just like they are. I would say to be a little bit kinder to myself, not to be so self-loathing. I'd recommend going into therapy a lot earlier. Um, and I would, without question, encourage myself to take that other path in the summer of 1983,
Yeah.
because who knows what could happen.
And I love the theme coming through there, and the theme throughout this conversation is courage. And that whole idea of measuring yourself against others and stop giving yourself a hard time. Once you let go of those things, courage becomes a much more achievable thing, because you're not actually, trying to measure your success against your idols. Because
Right.
I, I will never get up to the success of certain one of my idols, because I'm always going to have them on a platform I'll never be able to reach.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with idols. You love them, but you'll never be able to
Yeah.
get to their level because you love them.
Right.
Well, it's been an absolutely amazing conversation. I feel inspired, and it's great to see that, the fear can take hold of a young person, but it doesn't necessarily keep hold of them forever. And you can grow that competence, you can take that
Yeah.
journey, and you can still come through the other end, even with such a terrible sort of thing being the catalyst to the greatness.
Yeah. I mean, again, going back to that fear thing, you're going to have it. It's hardwired into us. It's a matter of whether or not you want to let it stop you. You can
Mm,
have the fear and still move forward. You don't have to let it hold you back. You can act as if you don't, even if you do. So
absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
my advice. You don't have to get rid of the fear. Just do it anyway.
Yes, I tell myself that pretty much every day as it happens. I'm like,
Yeah.
just do it.
Just do it anyway.
Just don't look at the bank account today.
Just jump.
It'll be fine.
Just jump.
Brilliant. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and
Thank you,
thank
Matthew.
you so much, Debbie, for joining us, and thank you, viewer/listener, for joining us too. So, all that's left to say is cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
And there you have it, another session of the Purple Coffee podcast at an end. Thank you so much for watching/listening, and thank you so much to you, Debbie, for being part of both this podcast and the Successful Mistake. I am so grateful and thankful that I took the risk and the leap to create the Successful Mistake. I have no idea how successful of a book it will be, but to have met people like you and to form the connections that I have means it will be one of the greatest things I have ever done. So thank you for being part of it, and thank you for sharing your great story with us. And you, viewer/listener, did you take a lot from this? I bet you did, because chances are you right now are suffering with fear. Maybe you are working for somebody else or still at university, or you've just got aspirations of starting a business but think, I can't do that. People like me don't start their own businesses. Well, Debbie was like that once upon a time too. She was scared, she was worried, she needed to make ends meet, and she didn't think she was capable of doing that kind of thing. But bit by bit, opportunities did come her way, and she learned to say yes to them. And she learned to change her perception, and it's taught her a great deal. Now she lives a life where when things come a-calling, she's ready to take them on board, but she still has that longing regret of, if only I'd have started sooner. Ultimately, we're always going to have an excuse to not do something. Sometimes those excuses are valid and there for a reason, but more often than not, there's a compromise to be had. So yes, allow fear to be a warning sign. Allow it to guide you every now and then, but do not let it prevent you from being who you are. So there we go. Thank you so much for being part of this. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And again, thank you to Debbie for being on this show and being in Successful Mistake. I encourage you times 1 billion to check out her world, check out her site and her radio show and her books, because you can thank me later after you go, wow, this girl is cool. And you can find all that information as well as how to subscribe to the Purple Coffee Podcast at bit.ly/purplecoffee18, somewhere down here. And once there, you can, like I say, subscribe. So if you like to watch things with your eyes, be sure to follow the Vimeo channel, whereas if it's listening is your forte, be sure to subscribe to the iTunes channel. And if you want the info before everybody else, please sign up to my mailing list. I won't spam you. I look after your email like it's my own child, and also check out The Successful Mistake. I'd love to have you part of this journey. It's a very transparent one, and I'm sure you'll enjoy being part of things. And with all that said, I shall now leave you to your day, because you are busy, busy indeed, and you've got lots of advice to note down and take on board. So until next time, be cool, be awesome, and keep kicking fear in the bleeding face. Hiya! You can't see, but I just kicked something.